Steve, the floor is yours. Let's let Steve have the floor.
I was just going to ask you, keeping with your theme. All right. You hear me? You hear me?
Yes.
No, just keeping with your theme from chaos to order. So how, with all we talked about and all we've read and all we've watched, how would you summarize taking what we're seeing as chaos in our lives and putting things back in order?
Good. All right. So here's my Mrs. Smith story I wanted to share with you, right? So when I was in school, high school, and I went to, for those of you who don't know, in Philly, went to engineering and science, historically a top 2, top 3 high school. And when I got there, there was Miss Smith, who was an English teacher. She was an older woman, and her reputation preceded her. Everyone said when I got there as a freshman, you do not want to take Miss Smith for English. If you get that, try to transfer out, whatever you got to do, right? And so as they were giving out the classes, I'll never forget, Miss Smith was, like I said, an older woman, African-American, and she was super strict, right? Her classroom was always cold. No one wanted her. She was so impersonal, and she graded really tough, right? And then because she was older, but she also had this very unpleasant aroma about her. She just kind of was that like caricature of a teacher, right? And so I'll never forget freshman year, I remember kind of like doing one of these, like, thankfully I did not get her for English. I was good. Sophomore year, junior year, I was good. I did not get her for English. I had someone else. Finally, senior year, not only did I get Mrs. Smith, I got her for the 8th period, the final period of the day. So my whole schedule was wrecked. And like the thing that was keeping me from being able to go home was Mrs. Smith's class, which nobody wanted to be in, right? So she kept herself emotionally distant from her students for the most part, except when it came to the drama club. So she was in charge of the drama club, and she helped them because it was a lot about sharing your emotions and expressing yourself and so forth. So you got to see this other part of her personality. Well, one day I was coming, because I had some buddies on the drama club, so I kind of hung out with them. And she had this quote on the board. I'm going to show you this quote, right? Matter of fact, I want you to really take a look at I walked in her class one day, and on the board was this quote: "Never let it be said, and to your shame, that all was beauty till you came." Y'all might want to write that down. It's a quote. It's attributed to Val Lewton. There's a couple different variations of it. One is a little bit wordier, but this is the gist of it. Never let it be said, and to your shame, that all was beauty till you came. And I bring this up because this literally changed my life. I don't remember anything else I learned from Mrs. Smith's class. I couldn't tell you. Now, I'm a bit of a wordsmith, so I probably did get some of the lexicon and things like that from her class, but I couldn't pinpoint what I learned other than this one quote, this experience. And when she had it up on the board, she broke it down for us and said, like, don't be the person, and in this case, we talk about manhood. Don't be the man that when you show up, everything else was going great. Everything was good. It was lovely. It was in perfect order. And then suddenly you arrive and it's chaotic. They got a project going on at the job. The team is working swell. You come and you add on to the team, and all of a sudden it's a wreck, right? You meet this woman. She's doing pretty good. She got a nice little career. She got a nice little going. She links up with you, and all of a sudden, shot, right? And I believe that this is where we find not only ourselves, but even in the story of Adam, right? He sort of represents where we all were, that literally God set it up perfectly. There was nothing else that needed to be done for this perfect. It was literally paradise. He was experiencing God in the most intimate way that anyone could possibly experience it. Literally, the scripture says that God was walking about in the cool of the day. He would literally meet with Adam almost like on a face-to-face, friend-to-friend basis every single day. There was nothing, there was no limitations on Adam in terms of who he was and what he could be. And yet, he did the one thing that you absolutely could not do, and that's unforgivable. I've often asked, much like perhaps many of you have asked, like, why was it such a big deal to eat like fruit from a tree? You start to think about, like, it was just fruit. Like, that's not something. He didn't kill nobody, right? He didn't, molest a child. He didn't do something that you would think was egregious. Like, why was that, worthy of death? And the more I thought about it and kind of looked through these scriptures, I believe that the answer for that is sort of tied into, and it's funny because makes me think of this episode of The Simpsons. I don't know if y'all remember this one, where Lisa Simpson, the sister, was shopping with her mom, Marge Simpson, in the grocery store, and Lisa was really struggling with her sense of identity, and she was leaning on her parents to show her things like truth and virtue and value, right? And so as Marge and Lisa are shopping in the grocery store, they're in the produce section, and like Marge, the mom, she goes and grabs like a grape and starts eating right out the store. And then Lisa, like her conscience is pricked. She's like, yo, like, mom, what's up with that? Like, you're supposed to be teaching us truth and honesty, and you're stealing food from the store. So she gets up to the line at the register, right? And then the cashier, the person at the register, Lisa kind of tugs on her coat. She was like, all right, yeah. And also, can you add 2 grapes to the cost of what I'm paying for? And then the cashier, he looks at her, he's like, you want me to do what? Like 2 grapes. And so he gets on the intercom. He was like, yeah, I need a price check on 2 grapes. Yeah, you heard me. I said 2 grapes. That's kind of like what I feel like this whole thing. Like, he ate off the tree. It's like, it's 2 grapes. Like, why is that such a big deal? If you look at the text, Adam's biggest sin wasn't necessarily about the 2 grapes. It was about the relationship. It was about the fact that Adam said he was willing to throw away the relationship to do things his own way. That's what it all boils down to. As men, our proclivity, our making the determination that not thy will, O God, but my will be done. That's what this all boils down to. It boils down to self. It boils down to being the reason that everything was beautiful, but now it's a mess because you showed up. And what he brought with him was this sense of selfishness that created this rift. So how when I say he forsook the relationship, how you know that is just as you said, Minister Don and Chico, was once God called him, he was like, hey, what's going on? Where you at? Like, Adam never said, notice the scripture never says when the serpent spoke to Eve and said, hey, you're going to be all right. You can eat this fruit, you'll be okay. And it says that she turned and handed it over to Adam. Notice nowhere does it say Adam was like in a crisis and he said, you know what, let me check with God first. You know what I mean? He told me the rules. He expressed to me what's going on. Like, I'm not feeling really quite comfortable about this. He had a perfectly good out to be able to say, all right, wait a minute. Let me at least pump the brakes on this one for a minute and check in, because we have this relationship and I don't want to throw that away. He was like, nah, he took it and says literally he took it and he ate. So he was willing to dump the relationship with the very source of life to have his own way of doing things. And I like what I often hear other preachers say, that, Eve was deceived. Adam sinned willfully, right? He just got all in there and was like, yo, this is my way and this is how I'm going to do it. So when you understand that as the backdrop and the context, to your point, Brother Steve, you then see why God puts such a premium on wrapping his arms around men and saying, I lost you the first time. That's not going to happen again. So when I give you the covenant this time, this is my expectation. I want you to come and meet with me. I want you to get away from leave your wives and your children at home, Exodus 34, and you come out of the camp and you come meet with me. Let's get this thing together. Let's get first things first. And if we get first things first, meaning my relationship with you, your devotion to me, you're recognizing that I am your source, I am God, and I am the lover of your soul. If you get that right, I will take care of everything else. I can move you then from chaos to order. Does that make sense?
That's crystal. Thank you.